So, guys, I want to talk about WWE a little bit, and there's been some people talking online about Gunter and his recent title win, and there's some people saying that they hope that he could be a multi-year champion, and then there's also some people who are saying that you kind of look at his old title reign where he held the UK title for 800 days, and then also he held the Intercontinental title for 666 days, the devil's number. So it's definitely, concerning for me because I do think with WWE, they have a huge problem with long title reigns. And I definitely think if you have a multi-year reign with Gunter, that's going to really be detrimental for a lot of reasons. The first reason I would say is that it's very redundant. You did that with the Intercontinental title. You did that with the UK title. You have done that with the WWE and Universal title. And, there's been some tag teams that have been holding a championship for over a year. So it just becomes redundant. And I also think the next thing is you have to ask yourself what would be the purpose of Gunter being a multi-year champion. I think the first thing that I would say is that he has to have an identity. Like Roman Reigns, the head of the table, he's about protecting his family and family dynamics. So that's something that can run for years and years. With Hulk Hogan, it was ultimately the WWE brand. He ultimately was a multi-year champion because he was trying to be like, okay, he wants to put attention on WWE by being the WWE, icon, and also he was tied into being the All-American icon. That's why it worked. When you looked at John Cena for having a championship reign that was a little bit over a year, it's exactly that same thing. Even though he had other championship reigns, it was just to establish that he was the top guy, really. Even though it probably worked the least really because it didn't really expand. It actually hurt the audience because people felt that people just didn't really attach to him really. And then with Gunter, the problem with Gunter is that there's really no identity to him. He's actually that stereotypical foreign wrestler, like, oh well, I'm a German European wrestler, so everybody's gonna hate me because I'm a foreigner. So you have the xenophobia thing. You also have the stereotypical. You also have kind of like the Rocky stereotype, where it's almost like you see Rocky fight the Russian. So that stereotype of Gunter's gonna be the German, So and there's the stereotypes. Okay, European athletes are better than American athletes. Obviously, the school systems in Europe and other countries value good nutrition and good exercise. And there are some cultures like in Jamaica where they emphasize, training their children to be ready for war or serving in the war, really, serving the war or serving the military for a certain amount of time, really. So there's a lot of other countries that emphasize fitness. So there could be a thing about maybe trying to repeat that. But the problem is you've already done that with wrestlers like Kurt Angle and other wrestlers as well, really. So I do think that you're going to run into that repeat of, what's he going to do? Is he going to be like, nobody's on my level, really? And then the other issue is that you kind of do that where you have nobody's on his level and he's a brawler type and he has great matches. Does that remind you of somebody? That reminds you a little bit of Will Ospreay. So you're kind of almost having the WWE version of Will Ospreay. Just somebody with a better character. But then people are going to say, okay, what's going to happen if AEW makes Will Ospreay the AEW champion? Or what would happen if Will Ospreay, gets the United States title and then he has a long reign and people are talking about his matches and people are going to say, okay, Gunner is a copy and paste, really. So definitely the whole, you have to find an identity for Gunter, but really you have nothing outside of that. He's very athletic and he has great matches and he has a really good physique, really. And then people can tie that into stereotypes such as, he's the evil foreigner, just like you see in the Rocky movies. Or he can kind of say things like, okay, you guys are all American pigs. You go to Walmart. You guys go buy your snacky cakes at Walmart. I go buy my barbells at Walmart when I'm in a hurry, type of thing, really. So he runs that stereotype. The other thing is that it holds up other champions. What would happen if what happened if people want LA Knight as a champion? What would happen if people want Drew McIntyre or CM Punk or Dominic Mysterio or Rey Mysterio versus Dominic Mysterio or Braun Breaker? Or what would happen if you brought Trick Williams to the main roster? There's a lot of times, and one bad thing about having a multi-year champion, like you saw that happen in WWE with Hulk Hogan. There could have been Roddy Piper, the $1 Million Man, Andre the Giant, not having just a one. I think his reign was like less than a day or something like that. So when you have somebody for a long, long time, really, there's many other reigns that you can do, and that leads me to then it's like unfair to those wrestlers, really. Then I think the other thing too is that, it, it can grow an audience, but it can actually decrease an audience. Like with John Cena, a lot of people saw the smoke behind the mirrors. They were trying to make him this really great wrestler and say, this is who Vince wants, really. So it can deflate the audience. And then it also goes over with Roman Reigns. Like the whole bloodline thing worked because Roman was a babyface for so long, and they actually wanted him to be a babyface. Imagine if he was a babyface through that, and people were booing him for like 3.5 years, but he chose to be like the heel, and then that worked, and that got him over, really. So that's kind of why you have to be careful with multi-year reigns. Is that if you're not the right type of character, the right type of heel or babyface, and you have somebody who's really insistent, you're going to decrease your audience. And I think that, the last thing that I can think of is two more things. I think I kind of established that when I look at Gunter, I kind of see another Kurt Angle type of like the arrogant athlete, really, So I do think that, and I also see a little bit of Will Ospreay, like people are going to like him because they're going to be like, okay, well, Gunter's having these 5-star matches type of thing. He's like the German, he's like, he's like the German chocolate cake for Dave Meltzer, where Will Ospreay is like the English pudding or type of thing, really. And you get what I'm trying to say. It's just to make Dave Meltzer happy, it's just to make the fans who care about the 5-star match ratings happy, really. So there's really no identity outside of that. And as I said, when I look at Gunter, I see Kurt Angle, that overly athletic, very disciplined type of person, really. So it's just kind of repetitive. And the last thing that I have to say is injuries, because you look at somebody like Josh Alexander when he had the TNA championship for over a year. What happened? He got injured. There are times when you have wrestlers that you want to book as champion for a very, very long time, and then they get injured. Or when you look at what happened to John Cena, I believe it was two things. He was filming a movie, and then he also legitimately hurt his pectoral muscle when just when he was feuding with Randy Orton. And look what they did. They had I think they had it get awarded to Randy Orton, then Triple H won it from Randy Orton, then Randy Orton won it back. And I remember I think after CM Punk, something like that, they had Rey Mysterio, then John Cena, and the Miz or something the same night, really. So it does become that thing as well. If somebody that's injured, it kind of messes up other plans. You have to throw things together, and usually it's half-baked, really. Or what would happen if you spend like a year and a half booking Gunter, or like 2 years booking Gunter, and then you're kind of like, okay, what do we do with this guy? After all that, if he gets injured, like who are we going to push? Like who's going to be our back burner if we all invest in him? What would happen if people want to see Ron Breakker or LA Knight or Dominic Mysterio, and you do something where Gunter buries them or blows through them, and then they become the champion and they don't look legit because you rushed through them? So I do kind of think that that with Gunter, they definitely really need to just utilize him to his full potential, really. And I think he can be a really great champion, but I do think that they have to be really cautious if they want to do another reign. And then I also will say that I think Braun Breaker has to be the person that beats Gunter. It either has to be one of two people. It could be somebody with the Money in the Bank briefcase. You could do an LA Knight. You could do a CM Punk. You can do a Drew McIntyre. You can do a Dominic Mysterio. Or you can do the other thing, too, is that you can have somebody beat him legitimately. And that should be, I think, Braun Breaker, number one, to make a new star. You can also have LA Knight. No, you can also have, Sami Zayn. Sami Zayn beat him. You can also do something like, had Chad Gable. And you could also have Drew McIntyre. That would be a really great match for CM Punk, really. There's a lot of things that you can do, really. But you also have to think about that as the next step. If he's going to be multi-year champion, you have to make it, you have to give it to somebody really important. Like, obviously with Cody Rhodes, he was like the big star, so you gave it to Cody Rhodes, but now they're a little lost of what to do, really. But what would happen if, as I said, you gave it to Braun Breaker, or Trick Williams, and then they kind of hold Monday Night Raw for a while and you see what they can do. I think Braun Breaker is the best package. He has the talk and the athleticism, really. So when you have a long title reign, that's another thing to think about. Who's going to be the next one in line, and actually can you do something with that person? So that's all I got to say, really. I think that, congratulations to Gunter, but they definitely have to be really, really careful with how they book him, and hopefully they don't do something like give him a multi-year reign without any thought, really.